Now that we have implemented most of the main features of the backdoor and we're happy with the way that they work, I want to spend this lecture highlighting one of the very important features in this backdoor and in all of the evil Python programs that we built so far. Now, all of these programs, including the backdoor, the keylogger, the download and execute, the download and report, the execute and report, all of these programs are written in pure Python. Now, if you remember, sometimes when we were, for example, writing the download code for the download and execute, I said it would be very easy to use the wget command to download the file, for example. But that would only work for Linux and OS X. Same would apply for many other concepts that we chose to implement using pure Python code. The advantage of this is that our code will work on any operating system that has Python installed on it. So it'll work on Linux, OS X, Windows, Android, iOS, or even if someone invents a new computer or new platform tomorrow, this will work on it as long as this new platform supports Python. Not only that, but when we package this, and we'll cover packaging later on, you'll see how we can transfer this Python source code into a standalone or into an executable. And when this is done, our program will work on the target computer even if it doesn't have Python interpreter installed on it. So we're leaving the packaging for later on in this course. Right now, I just want to show you the first section of what I said, which is our code is going to work on any computer that has Python installed on it. We've already seen how this works with Windows if we manually installed a Python interpreter on Windows. Now, OS X and Linux come by default from the factory with Linux interpreter installed on them. So we actually don't have to install anything, and all the programs that we wrote so far will work on them by default. So let me show you. Right here I have a Ubuntu Linux machine. I've already downloaded my backdoor, and as you can see, it's called reversebackdoor.py. And right here I'm already in the working directory in downloads. And if I do ls, we can see our backdoor right here. And before I run the backdoor, I just want to show you the IP of this machine. So if I do ifconfig, you'll see the IP is 10.0.2.17, which is on the same network as my Kali machine. So if we do ifconfig eth0, you'll see it's on 10.0.2.16. Now, as a rule of thumb, for any two computers to communicate, whether you're trying to get a reverse connection, whether you're trying to hack into a computer, or to just test open ports or anything really, if you can ping this IP or if you can communicate with this IP, then you can establish a connection between these two computers. So, the backdoor that we wrote so far, it uses TCP sockets. Therefore, it will work on the same network and it will work on the internet if the target is even in a completely different country. You just need to make sure that your computer is configured in a way that it can accept remote connections. Now, I covered this configuration in details in my social engineering course and in my ethical hacking course. I won't be covering this in here because that's something that is purely dependent on ethical hacking and it has nothing to do with programming really. In this course, we're testing everything inside our local network because that reduces the factors or the things that can stop our program from working. So as a rule of thumb, whatever you're programming or whatever you're trying to do, if you can do it on a local network between two computers, then you can do it across the internet. You just need to configure your computer to be able to receive remote connections. Now, with that being said, we're ready to run our listener. So I'm just going to do python listener.py, hit enter. This will listen for incoming connections. And if we go to the Linux machine and run the backdoor by again doing python reversebackdoor.py, Now, if we go back, as you can see, we have a connection. And now, we're able to run any system command. Now, since our target is Linux, then we're able to run any Linux commands. So we can start by doing ID to get our ID on the system. And you can see that my ID is Zaid. We can do pwd to see our current working directory. And you can see I'm in home Zaid downloads. Now we can test the cd command and make sure that we can navigate within the file system. So I can do cd ... to go back. If I do pwd, again, I'm in Zaid. I can list the files by doing ls. I can go back to downloads, do pwd, list, and looks like everything is working perfect. Let's try to upload a file, and let's upload the image, because the image is the most complicated thing to upload, and if it works, then chances are we can upload anything. So let's upload the GTR image by doing upload gtr.jpg. We get a message telling us the upload is successful. Let's go ahead and see. As you can see, we have an image here. Let's double click it. And as you can see, if we open it, we have the image working perfectly. That means the whole file was transmitted properly and it's working perfectly now. So again, we can use this to upload any files that we want. We can upload other backdoors, keyloggers, viruses, and so on. Now, let's test the download feature. So I'm going to close this image and I'm going to delete the image from here. And let's do download gtr.jpg. So we're literally downloading the image now from the Ubuntu machine, from the hacked machine to my machine. And as you can see, it's telling us the download is successful. And if we double click the image, we will get the image. So as you can see, we didn't have to modify the code for the backdoor at all, but the backdoor is working perfectly on a completely different operating system. So that's very cool. Let me exit and close this backdoor. And we're going to clear the screen. And the next thing that I want to do is test the backdoor against a Mac OS X machine that I have right here. Now again, you can see that I have the backdoor here in my downloads directory. And if we do ifconfig on this machine, you will see that this machine's IP is 192.168.1.6. So basically this means that this computer is in a completely different network. And for me to hack this computer, I need to configure the Kali machine to accept remote connections from outside of my own network. Like I said, this involves a little bit of a configuration. And if we do the configuration wrong, then the attack will not work and we'll think that there is something wrong with our program. So when testing, it's actually better to make sure the two computers are on the same network. So I actually configured my Kali machine to also connect to the same network as this Mac OS X machine. So all I'm going to do now is just connect to the same network as the Mac OS X machine. And now if I do ifconfig eth1, you'll see that my IP is 192.168.1.5. So basically the first three parts of the IP are the same. This means we are on the same subnet as the Mac OS X machine, which means that we can communicate with it. Now, since my IP is different, I'll have to change the IP in my listener here. So instead of 10.0.2.16, it's going to be 192.168.1.5. And we're going to run the listener again. Then at the OS X machine, we also have to change the IP of the backdoor so that the reverse connection is sent to the correct IP. And as you can see, I've already changed that to the IP of the Kali machine. So right now I'm in the working directory in downloads. And if I do ls, you can see I have my backdoor, which is called reversebackdoor.py. So I can just run it by doing python reversebackdoor.py, hit enter. And if we go to Kali, again, as you can see, we have a connection. Now we can run system commands, which means that we can run all the commands that a normal user can run on their terminal, on their OS X machine. So we can do ID. As you can see, it shows us the current user and the current machine and all of that. We can do pwd to see the working directory. We can do ls to list all the files. And let's test the ability to move within the file system. So if we do cd ... we can go back one directory. Let's confirm this. And again, you can see that this is working fine. Now we can list directories, and it's listing all the directories. Now if we go back to the downloads, we do cd downloads. We do ls. And it's showing us that there is only one file, which is the reverse backdoor.py. Now let's test uploading something to this machine. So we're going to do upload gtr.jpg. You can see it's telling us upload successful. If we do ls, we can actually see there is a new file. And let's go and run it and make sure it works. So if I just double click this, as you can see, the image is working perfectly, which means the file has been transmitted properly. Now let's close this, and I'm going to delete the image from the Kali machine to test the downloadability. So we're going to say download gtr.jpg, and as we can see, we have the file here. Let's open it. And perfect. As you can see, the file is working. So, as you can see in this lecture, we didn't need to modify any of the code that we wrote, but the backdoor is working on Linux, OS X, and Windows. And this is a rule or an idea that you should keep in mind, that when you write programs, if you write them using pure Python code and not rely on a specific operating system operation, then your program is going to work on all operating systems as long as they have a Python interpreter. And as we know, OS X and Linux come with a Python interpreter pre-installed. You'll have to install one manually on Windows for testing, but once we actually get into packaging, your program will work on all of these operating systems, even on Windows, and even if this Windows machine does not have a Python interpreter.